Hey everyone, I am Elise Anthony and I'm joined today by my fellow UAB classmates. Our presentation is entitled Everlasting Gobstoppers, and before we begin, we wanted to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So first, I'm Elise.
Hi, I'm Janie.
Hi, I'm Brittany.
Hey, I'm Savannah.
Hey, I'm Sadie.
Hi guys, I'm Hannah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, great. So for the first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to just make some acknowledgements because our topic is a pretty heavy topic today. So you have cared for your loved one more than anyone else in the entire world. And a good way to continue that care for them is to plan for when you're no longer here and unable to care for them. So today we're going to discuss planning for the future, more specifically preparing for when you're no longer here to take care of the person that you care for. So we know this is a sensitive and heavy topic and that you might want to be like an everlasting gobstopper, which is our theme, always there for the person you care about. So if you need to take a moment, please do so by just pausing this video and just taking a moment to breathe and just relax and gather yourself. And so thinking about a lot of this stuff can bring up feelings of anxiety, distress, worry, fears. We want to help address these feelings and walk through with you and help you in processing what to do. So just to yourself or write it down. What are some of those feelings and fears that you have?
Great, thank you, Janie. Okay. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about some coping strategies. So now that we've addressed some of our feelings and fears, this topic can bring up a lot of times where you may need to use coping strategies. So a coping strategy is any strategy that can help you manage stress or any difficult emotions that come up. So I wanted to go ahead and take this time to think about if you already have coping strategies that work for you and just kind of reflect on those. So now that we've kind of thought about that, I wanted to go ahead and take the next few minutes to guide you all through a body awareness coping exercise. This can be beneficial when you feel overwhelmed or stressed. I know this can be a lot of information to remember. So remember to take a deep breath, look at the slide, and then hopefully also there is a handout that goes along with this if that was provided to you along with this recording. So that can be great, but I'll go ahead and walk you guys through all of this stuff, and then you can feel free to do it along with me as I do it. So first off, we're going to take 5 long, deep breaths through your nose and exhale through puckered lips. Okay, now the next one is place both feet flat on the floor. Wiggle your toes and uncurl your toes several times, spending a moment noticing the sensations on your feet. Next, stomp your feet on the ground several times and pay attention to the sensations in your feet and legs as they make contact with the ground. The next one is clenching your hands into fists, then release the tension. So it's more like this. Okay, now we're gonna press our palms together and hold this pose, kind of like we're doing some yoga, for about 15 seconds, and pay attention to the feeling of the tension between your hands and arms. And now rub your palms together super briskly. Notice the warm feeling and the sound it makes. And then you're gonna reach your hands up for the sky and stretch for this for 5 minutes. Stretch it out and then relax at your side and take 5 more deep breaths and try to notice your body calming down. And then again, with all of this, just remember you can do it as slow or as quickly as you want to. You can do whichever step order you want and just kind of do whatever makes sense for you. But the overall importance of it is just to try to ground yourself and make sure you feel here and now, directing all your sensations to your body instead of the outside stressors of the world. So thanks, guys.
Okay, moving right along. In remembering what Janie and Elise said, this topic is something that we're not going to make light of. It is a extremely heavy topic, but it is essential in preparing our loved ones one day for when we're gone. So again, like Janie said, if you need to pause the video, if you need to take a step away from what's going on, do so. Utilize these coping strategies to just kind of bring you back down to base level. But getting right into it, an essential thing that you are going to need to do one day in your life is to make a will. And not only a will for yourself, but a living will in order to ensure that any types of emergencies are handled accordingly. But this will that I'm talking about is after you're no longer with your loved ones. So I'm just going to kind of go through the quick steps. And then there's a source down at the bottom. So if you want to pause the video, you can use this source and it kind of goes into more detail. But starting off, when making a will, looking at items 1, 2, and 3, you want to kind of take anything that you deem valuable, anything that you find meaningful that you want to include in your will. So this could be property, this could be money, this could be actual physical items like jewelry or memorabilia. And you want to be specific about where these items go, whether you want them to go to an individual person, whether you want them to go to an organization or a charity. And then that's where the beneficiaries come into play. So you making the will, you're known as the benefactor. So the people who receive the items in your will are known as beneficiaries. And this can be your children, your loved ones, anyone who you want to receive these items. And this next option is optional. Most people, they do suggest having an executor for your will to make the process easier. But again, it is an optional choice. But an executor is someone who most of the time isn't included in the will. And they carry out your wishes in the will and what you want to happen. So it's someone you trust highly, someone that you know will carry out your wishes as you want them. And then we're going to talk about this a little later on in today's video. But number 5, you want to name guardians for your children or your loved ones or whoever you're taking care of. And this can go for minors who can't take care of themselves or just anyone who doesn't have the level of independence to care for themselves. And then moving on at number 6 and 7, this is where you let everyone know who's in your will or who you need to be a part of your will. You just kind of let them know what's going on. So you need to ask your executor if they will carry out these processes. You need to talk to your beneficiaries, let them know what they're going to be receiving. It lets everything kind of run more smoothly in the long run. One important thing that you need to remember is that a will is not valid unless signed by you, the one who's making the will, and then also signed in front of 2 witnesses so that they can later on, if need be, say that you signed this will with your right of mind. So moving on to number 8, you want to store your will in a safe space. And this is something new I've learned, but it's called a legacy drawer. And so this is where you can store your will or any other important documents like insurance policies or estate papers, anything of legal value to you. This is just storing it somewhere where it can't be destroyed or somewhere where you're not going to lose it, just to ensure that you have everything in one singular place when you need them one day. And then number 9 and 10 kind of go together as well. As you live your life, depending on when you make your will, you might need to update it from time to time, whether you want to add or take things out, whether you want to add more beneficiaries or take out beneficiaries, kind of whatever life throws at you in those moments. And then add a little personalization touch. Consider writing a letter in your will. So telling the people in your will why they received this item or how much you love them. You know this is a difficult time without you, but just letting them know that you're there for them in spirit, essentially, and just overall just tying together the will as a whole. So at this time, if you want to pause the video, if you need to take a minute, go ahead. But just kind of think about different questions you may have. Use the resources provided to look over what's going on. Yeah, we'll move on to the next portion.
Okay, now when we talk about who would care for your loved ones when you are no longer able to. So deciding how your loved ones will be cared for when you are no longer able to should be a decision made well in advance and if possible with your family help. And some secondary sources could include other family members, additional caregivers, long-term nursing homes, assisted living, or group homes. And like Hannah was saying earlier about guardianship, if needed, guardianship should be decided and legal papers can be drawn up so there's no confusion or quarrel later. You can also create a file box with all the medical information regarding your loved one's care. And if no other family member is available to take over, work on creating a plan with your loved ones if it is feasible. Talking openly about this can prepare everyone for the worst case scenario and provide a peace of mind that there is a plan in place during stressful transition times. And doing this, always remember that planning for an unexpected emergency is never easy or comfortable.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about how to specifically prepare your loved one kind of emotionally for the future. So I do want to acknowledge that this might be one of the toughest parts of this entire process because it does involve conversations and processes that directly impact and affect the one that you care for and the one you love. But it is necessary to address because it exemplifies and shows how much you love them. I know for a lot of you, this might bring up feelings of anxiety, but at the same time, a lot of you might feel feelings of peace or comfort knowing that you're doing your job as a caregiver to really prepare your loved one for the future. And so you can kind of rest in that fact that they know and you're preparing them as much as you can for whenever you're not there to be with them. You obviously all know your loved ones more than anyone else, and you can kind of determine how to go about this process. I recognize that each of your loved ones has a wide variety and range in terms of functioning, and so that's kind of going to determine how you approach this. But I'm just going to talk about a few general strategies throughout this process. So the first strategy is going to be using simple words. So each of your loved ones, you each know the level of communication and dialogue that your loved one is able to handle and comprehend, which kind of dictates how you approach this conversation. It's important to be direct and affirmative whenever you're talking about this topic. So your goal when you have this conversation and when preparing your loved one is to ensure that they truly understand and comprehend this topic. So don't be afraid to use words like death and dying because, like I said, your goal is to truly get them to understand, even though that it sounds morbid and that's not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about. And then the second strategy, is to listen and comfort. So it's important to recognize your loved one, they might respond in a variety of ways. So they might get sad and cry, they might get really angry, or they might just have no reaction at all. So if your loved one is upset or they cry, you can offer comfort and sympathy and understanding. So you can do this by explaining and acknowledging that this is a hard thing to talk about. And even telling them that, it's a scary process for you as well. And you can establish that level of understanding with your loved one. Let your loved one know that their reactions and emotions are valid and they're understandable. You can also show physical support. You can give them hugs, hold their hand, or whatever method of physical comfort that your loved one responds to best. So, and then if your loved one, they might react in anger, they might get frustrated or upset. And so you can offer calm and soothing words of reinforcement. Another strategy for handling this is just to give them a little bit of time and space to kind of process this information and handle it. They may just need a little bit of personal time and alone time to kind of calm down just to think about this idea. They could be really quiet and maybe have no reaction at all. And so one thing that's important to realize if this is the reaction is that just might be their way of processing and coping. And so assure them that you're there if they have any questions or concerns, but also give them time to kind of reflect on that and process the information. So the next strategy is just to tell them what to expect. So it is necessary to discuss how your loved one's daily routines and lives will change without you in it. So this is an opportunity to address who may be caring for your loved one in the future and what that might look like and how it'll be different than how life is right now. Your loved one, they might be completely dependent on you, or they might have a very independent nature. So depending on their level of self-sufficiency, having this conversation might look a little different for each person. So this is a really practical strategy. It gives your child the opportunity to contemplate and really think about how their functional day-to-day lives might change. It's also important to start promoting independency in your loved one. So there's certain things, maybe household chores or tasks or running errands that you know that your loved one can do on their own, but typically you either do for them or you give them a lot of assistance. So maybe kind of stepping back in some of those areas and allowing them the opportunity to do it on their own. That just, one, it'll give you more comfort knowing that they have the skills and they're practicing those skills so that they're able to implement those in the future. And then the last strategy is to ask your loved one about any questions or concerns they have. So giving them a chance to talk about their feelings and reactions is really important. So make sure you ask them if they have any specific questions or any concerns. And you might not be able to answer all their questions, but just telling them that you're there for them and you understand, that can go a long way. So just guide them through their concerns. One of the best things you can do is just listen. And so also talk about the importance of open communication and make sure they know that they can come to you at any point, anytime, and you will be open and you will listen, and they are more than welcome to talk about their emotions and their feelings in relation to the subject. And then also, I think it's important to explain that the reason you're having this conversation and preparing them for this is not because you want to hurt their feelings or you just want to talk about a sad subject, but it's because you truly love them and you want what's best for them. So if you want to take a moment and kind of think about some of those strategies, I'm going to turn it over to Savannah and we're going to do a little activity.
All right, so now that we've discussed some strategies for planning in the case of this event, your activity for today is going to be creating a personalized checklist for you. So for this activity, you're just going to need a piece of paper and a pencil or other writing utensil, or if you want to use the note section on your phone, that is also a really great place to do this. So you can pause this video and take a few minutes to engage in this activity. In just a second, actually, if we go to the next slide, we're going to look at some examples of some things that you can put on your checklist for planning in the case of this event. So some things to think about are creating an environment to have a conversation with your person. So doing it at a time when they will be receptive to listening to what you have to say, creating a will if you haven't done so already, revisiting your will if you already have, and also returning to your legal attorneys. Creating a medical folder is a really good idea as well, because that will give the person who's going to be caring for your loved one after you just information about your loved one and what is best for them. Some other things you can think about adding to this checklist is a personalized medical folder or just a letter about the things that your loved one likes to do on a rainy or sunny day, the food that he or she likes to eat, etc. And then another thing to think about adding is a living will. And then lastly, we just wanted to acknowledge that engaging in this activity can be stressful and overwhelming. So it's a good idea to put a coping strategy at the bottom that can help you cope with all that's going on when you look at this list. So some suggestions that we had were kind of removing yourself from the situation, maybe sitting out on your porch or going for a walk, journaling your thoughts, as well as spending time with your pets.
Hey guys, so just thank y'all so much for being in this, listening to this video and just say thank you. And we know that this has been a stressful period and it's a stressful time, but we want to just give a quick breathing exercise that you can go over. So I'm just going over it one time, but basically it's called the 5-2-7. And so you breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, hold it for 2, and then release it for 7. So I'll do it once and we can practice together. So breathe in, hold it, and release. Great job. And so we just hope that you can use the coping strategies that Elise talked about, and maybe even just this breathing exercise to help when you're feeling stressed. But these are some questions that we have. And so how are you feeling after going and watching this video? What did you learn today that you want to apply? And then if you have any questions, I'm sure that you can email the people at AHIF, and they will love to help you and give you more information about the things that you need to know. But we really hope this was really helpful, and we hope that this checklist was not overwhelming, but just helped you get into control of what you